Meghan is a white woman because she was white for most of her life. She simply decided to embrace the little bit of Afro heritage that she had when it became convenient. But before that, she passed as white. And she's, by her own admission, has never experienced prejudice. So she has no idea of, and also the American Black experience is entirely different from the Caribbean Black experience or the African experience. So they are two ignoramuses who have opportunistically played the race card so that they could make money on the back of being victims.
And Lady Colin Campbell is here on what has been a rocky few days for the British monarchy. And as a result, the mainstream media seem to be celebrating and predicting, quote, the end of the British Empire. So this is Politico today, the international newspaper, claiming that they're in deep trouble, that the Commonwealth is in deep trouble because the Indian PM Modi and the South African president, two of the most powerful Commonwealth heads of government who would normally be in attendance, both plan to skip the summit in favour of BRICS, which is a separate gathering of major developing nations hosted by the Russian President Vladimir Putin. We've got the Chinese president there. Sri Lanka, which is applying to join BRICS, is not sending the Prime Minister or Foreign Minister to Samoa. Not even Canada will send its Prime Minister or Foreign Minister. And Lady Colin Campbell, this comes on a really difficult few years for the monarchy when it comes to the reparations debate, which is going to be very much on the table in Samoa. Of course, it has been sparked particularly by the Caribbean nations, empowered, of course, by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's rhetoric. So, what's your take? Are we really witnessing the end of the British Empire, or is this mainstream media hysteria?
Well, in fact, good friends of mine are good friends of Mia Motley. So, and they actually admire her. And I happen to have helped to get Andrew Holness elected. He's the Prime Minister of Jamaica. And I was at something with his wife the other day in New York. And, we were talking, and actually there's a picture of us together published somewhere, I forget where. But the point I'm making is that Meghan and Harry's influence they have no influence to be lobbying behind the scenes. At the time of the Bob Marley premiere in Jamaica, Andrew Holness and his wife didn't even want to speak to Meghan and Harry. They were virtually strong-armed into speaking to them because he was so mortified by the way the Waleses, then I think they were still the Cambridges then, yeah, visiting Jamaica had been hijacked. And you need to remember with a lot of these countries, they're relatively new countries. They have very different dynamics to what we are used to in Britain or America or France. They have totally different histories and they have totally different problems. And one of the things they have to be very careful of is not antagonizing and alienating their lower classes, to use an old-fashioned word, because they, they have increasingly less uneducated populations than in my youth, but there's still a great deal of ignorance, really, and naivety. And, the political situations are completely different. And these leaders have to be very aware of playing to the gallery in a way that, well, I suppose Keir Starmer has played to the gallery brilliantly, hasn't he? I mean, he's managed to get himself elected on a whole tissue of lies,
Yes.
and is now going to be coming up with all sorts of troublemaking. So I suppose there are actually more parallels than I thought with this country. But I hope the situation is a lot more nuanced and a lot more opaque and a lot more mixed than journalists and political pundits in this country seem to think. They sort of think, oh, well, these are black countries and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, they just don't get the complexities. So Harry and Meghan's influence was in terms of setting off the race baiting, and that the uneducated segments of these populations would use race as a cause of dissatisfaction. And to an extent, these political leaders get caught up in the flow, so to speak, whether they really intend to or not.
I guess for me, what's so despicable, though, Lady C, because I completely understand what you're saying, and it is very complex, just like actually the situation in Australia and New Zealand is far more complex than how the mainstream media like to report it too when it comes to the Republican debate. But I think for me, what is most despicable is that the late Queen Elizabeth II wanted to secure the future of the Commonwealth, and she specifically thought that Prince Harry and Meghan would play a role in doing that. She gave them that honorary position. Now, from what I'm hearing, Harry and Meghan now want to bring down the Commonwealth. Now, whether they have the power to do that is, of course, a completely different thing, and they don't. But it's still utterly disgusting that they are that disloyal and that treacherous, especially Meghan, who never actually understood the Commonwealth. And it's all just about scoring points against King Charles and Prince William.
Well, to an extent, you're absolutely right, because first of all, Harry has no knowledge of any significance about the Commonwealth, none whatsoever. Meghan has even less, so she has less than none. Meghan is a white woman because she was white for most of her life. She simply decided to embrace the little bit of Afro heritage that she had when it became convenient. But before that, she passed as white. And she's, by her own admission, has never experienced prejudice. So she has no idea of, and also the American Black experience is entirely different from the Caribbean Black experience or the African experience. So they are two ignoramuses who have opportunistically played the race card so that they could make money on the back of being victims. And I have to tell you, a lot of the politicians and leaders in the West Indies and in Africa are fully aware of this. So don't give Harry and Meghan credit for any influence in terms of being able to reach political leaders. What they do have is a name that can be exploited, and that they will sell for their own commercial benefit, and that there will be politicians who will, on the spot, whether it's in Nigeria or Jamaica, use their existence to advance the politicians' local interests. But they have, I mean, if they rang up Jamaica House, which is where the Prime Minister of Jamaica has his official residence, and said, oh, we are going to da-da-da, I can promise you the call wouldn't be put through.
Yes.
you know?
Okay, well, that's one thing. I'm happy about that. Now, Lady C, couple of moments of King Charles in Australia. He's obviously on his way to Samoa now, but there was a charming moment, but I think also an important moment where he acknowledged to a member of the Australian crowd that the reason that he wasn't staying for longer down under was because he had been told that he couldn't buy his doctor. I think I just wanted to show you this moment because it's very charming, number one, but I think it also shows that we need to remember that Charles is still undergoing really serious treatment at the moment. Watch this.
Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure. Welcome to Australia.
I hope you managed to get home without getting stuck in.
We would love to have you longer.
The doctors won't let me.
So absolutely adorable moment, but I think he's done an incredible job given the pressure he's under with his health.
You know, he's a marvelous guy. I mean, I don't think he's a genius. I don't agree with him on everything, but he's a good-hearted man. He's very committed. I always said we were lucky to have him as a Prince of Wales. Look at the wonderful things he did with now the King's Trust, then the Prince's Trust. He's the first person who actually got stuck in with the disadvantaged youth in this country, including the black youth. He's a really great guy. And I think seeing him and Queen Camilla together and to see the palpable love and how decent they are and how kind and, you know, just how warm and human they are, I think it's just wonderful. And my understanding is from people on the ground that they have actually gone down tremendously well. And let's remember, he had to pause his cancer treatment to do this. And he could only pause it for the maximum length of time that the doctor would allow. So, you know, he's to an extent handicapped by his health.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly could not believe so much of the coverage in the mainstream media was so negative. I was saying earlier in the week, especially the scenes outside the church on Sunday, it felt like 1983 again. It was like the same sort of welcoming that Charles got when he took Diana and Prince William there. But I do want to get your reaction, Lady C, to this fruitcake. She's a total fruitcake, attention seeker, Lydia Thorpe, the Australian Victoria Senator, who has some I guess comparisons, some similarities is the word I'm looking for, to Meghan Markle, given she also seems to want to pretend that she's no longer white. But this was Lydia Thorpe's interruption of King Charles's speech.
Genocide against our people! Give us our land back! Give us what you stole from us! Our bones, our skulls, our babies, our people! You destroyed us! Give us a treaty! We want a treaty in this country! You are a genocider! This is not your land! This is not your land! You are not my kids! You are not our kids!
I mean, unfortunately, Lady C, it's impossible for a moment like that not to go viral, but what did you make of it?
I know she had a drink problem, but I wonder if she's been taking leaves out of certain people's books
So there's other
and
similarities.
going marching on Colombian powder. Because the ravings of an almost white woman who, rather like Meghan, has decided that her little bit of non-European blood is going to be maximized so that she will gain attention and that she will be able to capitalize upon it and make an exhibition of herself. And, you know, I wonder if she went to Montecito to get lessons in how to do this.
Yes, there are certain similarities because, of course, Lydia Thorpe has Irish heritage, which she's quite embarrassed about these days. But first, digestive issues are caused by a potential toxin that's in all of the, quote, healthy foods that scientists have been telling us to eat with a fraudulent food pyramid for the longest time. And this potential toxin causes digestive issues, According to Dr. Gundry, a world-renowned cardiologist, this is affecting millions of people nationwide. Warning signs include weight gain and fatigue, digestive discomfort and stiff joints, even skin problems. Well, Dr. Gundry explains these side effects can be manipulated and mistaken for normal signs of aging because digestive issues develop usually over a matter of years and sometimes even decades. I can assure you that the damage is probably caused by these health foods and it's far from normal. The good news is you can easily help fix the problem from your own home. It's very simple. You just have to know which foods are actually healthy and which contain this hidden potential toxin. So you can go find this yourself at gutcleanseprotocol.com/outspoken. That's gutcleanseprotocol.com/outspoken. I've put the link in our show notes on YouTube and Rumble too. Because after years of research, Dr. Gundry has decided to release an informative video to the public, free and uninterrupted, showcasing exactly which foods you need to avoid. Go find that video at gutcleanseprotocol.com/outspoken or click on the link in the description below. But now, back to the show.
The British Commonwealth is no longer the British Commonwealth because there are 4 members of it who are not British. The 4 most recent members are actually either Portuguese or former Portuguese or French colonies. So it is the Commonwealth is a free union of states who consider it in their interest to club together for basically economic reasons and to an extent cultural or social reasons. The other organization that you mentioned is far more politically important because the President Putin and a few other of the emerging superpowers, such as India, are clubbing together as a counterbalance against the American-led Western powers. Because when we had a chance in the early 90s under Yeltsin, who wanted to join NATO, and then latterly Putin wanted to join NATO, and Rumsfeld and Cheney are the ones who blocked him joining NATO. Many of the European powers, for instance, Germany under Chancellor Kohl, were very interested in having Russia join NATO. And what would have happened, and the Americans were very aware of this, was that there would have been a European power bloc that ultimately would outgrow America's help, so to speak, at which point it would become a competitor for America. So America crushed that by making sure that Russia was excluded and that Russia would ultimately feel threatened by NATO as the Western powers broke their word to Russia after the fall of the Soviet Union, when they said there would be no encroachment of NATO growing into the former Soviet republics. Then you had places like Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, Hungary joining. And so that what we have now is a reconfiguration of spheres of influence. You have the American-led Western sphere of influence, where we, the European nations, are really we're satellites to America. Had we had Russia in our camp, instead of having America ensuring that Russia would be excluded, we would have now be well on our way to being a counterweight to the United States of America. which in many people's opinion would have been much more in Europe's interest than us being poodles of the United States of America. So you now have a recalibration, because remember, Russia is the biggest country on earth. It's the naturally richest country on earth. It so happens that in the last 100 years, in fact, over 100 years, it's been a political mess, but it doesn't alter the fact that it is naturally the largest and richest country on earth. And the Americans have been right to fear Russia's influence, because a century ago, in 1910, Russia was confidently predicted to become the largest economy on earth by the 1930s. That is, had the Tsar remained in power, had there been no First World War, etc. And you know, so what is going on is with the former British Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is actually, I mean, the Commonwealth is not a power block of the way the new power block that is emerging with Russia, China, India. India is rapidly becoming one of the richest countries on earth, very silently, very quietly. And in the West, we seem to think that India is still a colony. I mean, you know, and the way we in the West regard India, it's actually offensive to the Indians. So I think that's what's going on, and it has. Harry and Meghan have caused a tremendous amount of problems. I know this because I've had politicians in the West Indies and Africa and diplomats tell me the tremendous problems that Harry and Meghan have caused them and how they disapprove of the problems Harry and Meghan have caused. Of course, the leaders in these countries are now going to play the political card and the race card because it suits them. You know, it's a massive distraction from what is often incompetence in these countries.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.